Do you want to do it?
Not really. I'm the secretary of too many other
There's a lot of confidence there.
Betsy said she would be happy to take whatever minutes and then massage them into their better form.
So I'm very good at condensing trustees' meetings.
Yeah, I really do that for another group of folks that you associated with. They're always pretty accurate as well.
Well, that's because we don't talk about much. Not much to write down. We make sure we don't.
Don't say anything. All right, let's go. All right, let's call this meeting to order. It's a little bit late, but we'll do it. The roll call, we have, let's see, who do we? Kimball? Scott Badger? Dick
Bennett.
Dick Bennett? Kathleen Doherty? Is it Dougherty?
Doherty.
I gotta get it right.
I don't care.
And Chris McAleer. Not attending this evening is Betsy Harding. And she called to say it took the ER to get her not to be here tonight. So, okay, and we've got actually audience members. It's really great. Thank you for attending this evening. We need to pass around a little sheet to get you all signed up. Maybe we can do that.
We should get them on our mailing list if we have any.
Yeah. Good to get the emails and,
Oh, you got one.
can you do that, please? We appreciate that. And we have, for the record, thank you. All right, we have minutes. If you don't have them already. We also have an agenda. We don't have one already. No, all set?
I got it.
Oh, you good? All right, these guys are good. So, looks like everyone's voting tonight. Let's take a look at minutes from last meeting. Anybody hasn't had a chance to look at them?
Move that we accept them.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're good, done. All right. So it's that wonderful time for public comment on any matter not before the planning board this evening. Do we have any public comment on any matter not before the board this evening? Hearing none. Our first guest for this evening is Tara Bamford, and she has done a wonderful job working with us, apparently for the build out, I believe, is that correct? And I read some of that material, it's wonderfully done, thank you. And you're here to help us understand a little bit about what we can do to possibly add to our housing stock in Jackson.
Where do you want me?
Come on up. Please. If you want to speak for the camera, you can sit right
I
here.
think we could hear her better if she spoke in this direction.
I think so. So how about you come on up here and we'll take a guest seat right here. And that'll help our camera person being able to focus in up here.
I brought a few copies of the build-out analysis, just 3. I'm not sure who was on the board at that time or not. I think you weren't. I also brought just plenty of handouts with a few of the key illustrations from the recall, we had a lot of conversation about the fact that there wasn't a lot of area in town zoned for business that was developable business. And I kind of tried to take that holistic look at your issues and the master plan, as I understood it from Betsy's email. So kind of just to go back and review the build out, this first sheet, the blue, hopefully nobody's colorblind. So a map this small, it's hard to use different patterns. The blue is public land and other tax exempt. The green is conserved. The orange is your village district where you allow business. The yellow were lands that at that time were taxed as a commercial or industrial. So would be grandfathered commercial laws. This just kind of the three progressed through the thoughts of the build-out analysis. The next one was a little complicated with the parcel lines on it, so I took them off. The orange stands out a little more. There's your village district. The blue is the, whatever, I forget what you call your river or floodplain district. And then the third map adds the soils that aren't considered developable because you have the soil-based zoning in town. So there's not a lot left. There's not a lot that's white. There's one message, and that was one clear thing that jumped out there. But there's even less developable land for any kind of business. And that's what, when you look at the build-out analysis and the tables and the numbers, you see a lot more developable land in the rural areas. And so I saw in your master plan an interest in trying to see where else you might allow some business and how you also might control, kind of not end up with strip development on what's really a commercial strip, the way it's zoned on Route 16. Does that sound familiar? Does it, ring true? So that's kind of a starting point for how I was looking at your zoning in terms of housing. And what does all this mean for housing? And I know that, Betsy's email was asking me, look at some other town zoning and what have they done. Where you already have soil-based lot size, there's not a lot of room to expand the opportunities there. You don't have a 5-acre district that we can say, gee, maybe you should take part of that and make it 1 acre. You're already using the soil-based lot size. That's pretty close to the DES requirements. So when I look at your workforce housing section, there's not a lot of incentive there to do affordable units because it gives you, I think, 50 feet less frontage than another cluster development might. And it lets you use the DES sizing rather than the soil-based lot size. But those are so close that you don't have a lot of incentive really in there yet. So that's the first thing that jumped out at me is that, if you look maybe some areas in town where it makes sense to have more dense development and think about how you can offer a better incentive for affordable housing.
And have you seen incentives that work for other towns in New Hampshire?
Every town's different. I know that it's tempting to just think, because I have 51 towns and I used to work for another 27 towns, that I can come and here's 10, but your village is unique. Your geography, your development limitations, you're stuffed in the middle of the national forest. I try to just really look at your master plan, what you said you wanted, what you have in your zoning, and what you have for development limitations. And the thought I had, because, looking at those two issues together, what if the incentive was allowing some commercial development? You could develop kind of like a planned unit development floating district, have certain criteria in there so that it's where it really belongs in the town, because you don't have room for commercial development. That may be the kind of incentive that it would take, that, gee, if you want to build some commercial development or expand some of these that are not in the village district, here's what you have to do. You have to build some affordable units with it. Trying to look at what's going to appeal to a developer in the community. What's in short supply? And it's not density here, where you already have soil base throughout the town.
Now, that type of incentive for affordable housing, I think is much more workforce housing based than it is affordable housing for young families, which is also a problem here in Jackson.
Well, what do you mean? I mean, most young families are not on the high end of the income scale yet.
Right. So we have two affordable housing issues, as I said. One, we don't have workforce housing for, generally single people that are, tend to be younger and working at the hotels and various businesses in the area. We also don't have housing stock for young families that want to move into town, wherever they're working, whether they're working in Jackson or elsewhere in the valley. We just don't have properties that young families can afford. So we're seeing fewer and fewer of that type of resident, both parents and the children. And so, is there anything that we can do in terms of zoning or otherwise to promote that type of additional housing?
Again, your zoning is pretty permissive already. I did think there was a little cleaning up that could be done in terms of housing in the zoning. It's great that you allow detached accessory dwelling units. But you might want to look again at how you treat the lot size for attached accessory dwelling units. I mean, the accessory dwelling unit law was, I was thrilled to see that passed, because in our Northern New England small towns, that's a really common way to fill a lot of the need. And you're really not supposed to be allowing requiring additional lot size unless it's required for the septic for those. So that's, I think that's an amendment that you'd want to get on, for next year to catch up with that law.
I
We
think
already
that
did.
we did make that change this past year.
Okay, then maybe Betsy sent me the wrong version.
There's no difference between our approach to detached or attached, if I understood it correctly. That's what we intended to do.
So this is,
Could you define what affordable housing is, either in terms of total cost or a monthly expense, to meet your requirement of affordable?
no, but is one of you Victoria?
I'm Victoria.
I think Victoria probably can. She's, since she's with the Housing Coalition.
It's the median income. Yeah, it's 8% of the median income.
I'm sorry, what was the comment?
So it's sort of a floating number. So what would be affordable, someone paying $300,000 a year,
No, the generalized median income.
of what?
What are the state median income off the top of my head? I
And what
think
is
It
it?
would be helpful if she came up and we had
65,000?
one.
How much?
65 for a family of 4. I don't know the
And
statistics
so
off
what
the top of
would
my head.
that be in terms of?
In terms of a one-bedroom apartment, right now, we're looking at about that $750 a month. In terms of the two-bedroom, probably $850, and then in terms of like a home, probably looking at 175 to 225.
Yeah,
three-bed.
I think-
come up here.
I think we'd have a more productive conversation if we were all at once up here.
How about we do this all together? Is that all right?
I wanted to sit out there.
Dick, you can sit down out there.
Well, it's so overlapping.
Maybe put our minds together here
Yeah,
on the
that's
issue.
great, actually, having this conversation.
Can we introduce you so when people watch this thing, they know who the heck you are? And then you're Victoria
I'm Victoria Larcy.
Larson, thank you.
I'm the executive director of the Mount Washington Valley Housing Coalition. And,
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And I was coming here just to do an update of some of the projects we're working on. The Housing Matters, yes, and our charrettes in the housing, affordable housing fund that we're really working on right now. But in looking at, just taking notes while Tara was talking, and looking at some of the possibilities, you're looking either to expand the commercial wood incentive or trying to bring in workforce or affordable housing. So as our job, we provide resources and information and advocacy. We have a variety of different grants you can apply for to like an MTAG grant or a municipal technical assistance grant to hire a consultant to look into that. And I'm sure you're familiar with that, Tara, right? Yeah, in terms of assisting with some of these questions, bringing
Grants
consultants.
through you or through Plan New Hampshire?
No, we're a standalone advocacy organization in the Washington Valley.
Yeah, wasn't aware of your grants, just the
No,
same
it's through New
program.
Hampshire Housing.
Okay.
Yep, the municipal technical assistance grant, they're actually doing another round. And again, in the fall, you can apply, but you can apply for up to $5,000 and actually have it matched with New Hampshire Housing's grant to have a consultant come here to discuss and do an overview of your entire master plan and how it deals with housing and development and affordable housing. And I can assist you with that. I know I've talked with Betsy about it and forwarded the information, but at that time, there was a lot going on and it just wasn't a possibility to look into that and apply at that time.
How does that differ from the build-out plan that you did for us?
Well, I
Is that
think
just
the
a
next-
start and then this is a
Yeah, I mean,
Follow-up,
right,
yes.
the build out, it wasn't a plan, it was an analysis. It was where's your developable land and if you stay zoned just how you are, what kind of community are you gonna end up as? The MTAG grants, and we have one we're working with Franconia with, is, the hands-on, let's get the public to the table to roll up the sleeves and see how we can tweak the zoning to be more housing friendly. Is that
And-
good in a nutshell?
And Robin LeBlanc from Play New Hampshire has offered to come up here and talk with you about that for further assistance. It would definitely be a good conversation to have.
Victoria, could I get you to repeat what those monthly, based from like a one-bedroom to a three-bedroom?
Right now, we just did analysis is about 700, and I wish I had the most recent numbers that just came out from New Hampshire Housing, and they did go up a little bit, but unfortunately for our valley, they shouldn't have. About 750.
One bedroom?
850, and then the average cost, looking at, most families around here cannot afford $175,000 for a home.
Right.
So 175 to 225.
And so
And
the,
Habitat, for example, their homes are in 125 range.
Yeah, I believe so.
and so some of the things that I would recommend looking at in such a project would be, again, relooking at the accessory dwelling unit requirements, cleaning up the definition of multifamily housing because it takes in single-family homes in your definition, and I think that's a little bit murky. Maybe you'd want to specifically add duplexes as a type of housing allowed, and again, I think, with your shortage of commercial land, that would be an incentive to think about in terms of the workforce housing.
And the long-term rental here is also, I'm not sure, long-term rental here, how's the vacancy rate here? I'm pretty sure it's low, like zero. That's what I didn't want, that's what I I thought.
You know a friend of a friend.
You know, a friend you can get, yes, and a lot of Airbnb or VRBO.
And I was gonna ask, how much of, say, the accessory apartment, how much of that goes into?
When the law was initially, it was for, you know, to age in place or to provide
But,
housing. Personally, my own personal opinion, I think that it would be a very small percentage of people that would actually use an accessory dwelling unit as an Airbnb or VRBO, because it is your home, your primary dwelling for the most part, and then to have someone coming and going just isn't as, say, convenient, at least for me, than having a long-term rental.
And you can just not allow it. I mean, you can shape your definitions to not allow the Airbnb. I mean, that's basically, you should be charging the rooms tax on that.
although in
And that makes it not residential.
sort of in a backhand way, though, a young couple looking to move into town and being able to rent out that accessory apartment as Airbnb.
It is very
That
beneficial.
might be the way they can afford that house.
And that's what I see a lot, especially with young families. I know my own friends that have the VRBO, you know, and the Airbnbs, and that is how they pretty much survive.
Yeah.
Teachers are a workforce because
Right.
they can't afford any other way.
And I didn't want to sound like I was recommending not allowing it, but saying that if you were concerned, you can not allow
Well, it
it in
cuts
the
both ways.
definition.
It's, you know, it's a double-edged sword. It's a benefit and then it's not. Another thing that, you know, that is always floating, and this again is my mind and not the housing coalition, although we're throwing it out, is, you know, maybe different municipalities need to do a property tax incentive.
Do you know of Stowe, Massachusetts?
No.
What
I don't, Stowe?
Yes.
And I don't know if it's law, because I only found sort of a proposal, and I talked to someone from Tenant who thought it was law, but she couldn't remember. But anyhow, they were proposing it was a deed restriction, or deed restriction based, and if a property was sold to, within that income bracket, that sales price, that I think you both got money for that, and then a tax break ongoing. So I don't know if that, I don't know for sure that it became law or not.
Right.
But they also, I know that instead they have there's a trust that somewhat like a conservation trust brings in land using, grants and et cetera. And then I don't know whether they work with, I don't know how they get something constructed on the land, or whether they buy properties with houses, but they then target those properties to be affordable.
Yeah, there are a lot of possibilities just out there in terms of just incentivizing long-term care or long-term rentals. I mean, we always tend to put the negative on things, but to actually incentivize might be a way. I'm hoping municipalities will go, at least our long-term rental is, well, yours is 0. I mean, town of Conway is about 1%. And we need long-term rentals here in the valley too.
Could I ask another question? As part of your build-out analysis, I didn't look at it. Did you do an analysis of the capacity of the Jackson Water Precinct for expanding use?
I did look at, how many gallons would be associated with the build-out population. I don't remember if we compared that with the capacity.
I just wondered if anybody has ever defined what the capacity of the water system is.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that has to be done with DES. But, well, I compared that with the development potential, I don't recall now.
Well, I think the precinct would probably do it, shouldn't they? Wouldn't they know?
Yeah, there is a specific on page 9 and top of page 10. That was part of the build-out.
Well, that's the loading
Is that,
capacity of the soil. But,
all right, not the amount of, okay, no. Well, it does get to the point of water use.
Right.
When I looked at that, I assumed that the more you add to the effluent, you have to have but, so it gave some information regarding the water.
I did gallons per day by the different sub-areas, is the closest you're gonna see to that. But yes, obviously, if it's discharged, it's gotta come from somewhere.
Right,
I wasn't thinking so much of the discharge as I was the water
right.
from the
Protecting the
precinct.
water.
Right,
What is their capacity now as it exists?
yeah, we didn't look at that.
That might be a good place to start.
I've got a question. You know, based on what we've talked about, what is there a way to estimate the potential for either lower income housing in Jackson or, you know, for workers? I mean, you could run out of land very easily. I mean, if you looked at what's land is available, you know, what are the actual prospects?
You have plenty of land available. but
We have
still,
plenty of
I mean,
land.
that's what the build-out was saying, is that I mean, the market is the other piece of that equation. That's more.
Well,
You're right,
that
but-
comes into account too, because of the value of the land. I mean, if, you know, an acre is worth, you know, $200,000, you're not gonna be able to build a home on there for, what was that number, somewhere between 175 to 225?
$25,000.
Yeah, I mean, so, I mean, that's basically what I'm trying to figure out is, you know, we can go through all of this stuff and less land, although there's plenty of it, is reasonable.
Right.
Are we,
Just wasting our time.
And
are we
the development-
sucking air through our straws?
But, well,
Just
that's why you look for an incentive, you look for what's gonna make it worthwhile for someone to build this. And in rereading the build-out, my sense was commercial development, because, you just have a tiny little strip, and, you know, between 16,
But how many businesses can, you know, Jackson support in April and May? I just,
expansion of some of the grandfathered businesses might have an appeal.
I think if they wanted them, they would come to us and ask about it, to tell you the truth. And so-called getting businesses, commercial businesses want to be down in North Conway. There's no question about it. They don't come up here to do so-called shopping. There's little unique shops that we have around here, art galleries and some unique shops, but we're not going to attract anything else around here as far as doing anything commercial in shops.
The difficulty really is around the level of traffic that we have here, and it's highly seasonal. Our busiest time is in August, actually, believe it or not. If you go by the number of cars going down past the bridge on Route 16, that's when they did their bridge survey, that was the busiest time of the year for that overpass. And there are times during the year where we don't get a lot of traffic, and we have mud season here twice a year. And so it is very seasonal. Difficulty for businesses on a commercial basis, if you're looking at retail, it makes it difficult compared to being in a North Conway or a location comparatively, or even if you're on the strip in Gorham, we get more regular traffic than we do here. That's just fact. But when you're talking about commercial, the other question is there any other kinds of commercial that you're considering when you say commercial?
What are your existing businesses? I mean,
It's,
They're
restaurants
mostly-
and
Hotel,
Right.
motel,
it's entirely resort oriented.
restaurant.
right, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
And,
there's-
and they have a really hard time getting workers, correct?
I don't know about that.
And that's what we hear
Well-
from the bigger resorts and,
Well, workers have a hard time, well, can't live here, and so
right,
the workers would have to be commuting from other areas where housing is a little more affordable.
what we don't have, I think we could, and the workers could live here potentially, would be professional services. And that would also have a very low impact other than to increase traffic, but.
Professional services, what do you mean by that? Example?
Law office.
Doctors,
software,
lawyers, insurance
software.
Doctors and lawyers aren't looking for affordable housing.
That's right.
No, we're talking about business, promoting more businesses in town, businesses that can pay a wage that
But it
a
isn't-
family will move into.
Maybe I'm missing the point, but isn't the goal to increase young family populations in Jackson?
Well, I think those businesses would, they would provide wages to a young, to a young professional that
Right.
would be able to move into town with their family.
And we have provisions in our zoning now for shingle-type businesses. Attorneys and doctors and
In
Yeah, what
residential.
Yeah, what I thought I was understanding you to say though is that if we could do some kind of commercial development that also allowed some ancillary affordable housing as part of
Not
that.
allowed it, but required.
Yeah. And package it up. There are obviously problems with that, but I think that's what you were
Right, that's what I
suggesting.
was picturing, is exploring some kind of floating PUD zone.
Well, it's incentives. You got incentives.
Right.
If we don't have the incentives, that nobody's going to develop the land into less cost housing. Other than
Unless there's a
the,
financial
highest and
incentive.
best use.
Yeah.
And that may be a chalet, but they're going to sell that chalet for more than they're going to,
Terry, you mentioned that going from 200 to 150 feet of frontage, which we have right now, towards the village and cluster development, is not enough. We're going to 100 feet. Make a difference?
I thought the way you had it written in there was for the development, not even for each lot in it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see that making an economic difference to somebody.
And so something I proposed at the last meeting, which got mixed response. And this is not for workforce housing, this would be more toward allowing, a young family to afford a property, would be to lower the zoning, the frontage, say from 200 to 150 or to 100 feet for a single unit. So long as it's, goes through all the income level, sales level, et cetera, which would allow someone, the example I gave is if you have 300 feet right now because of our 200-foot frontage, you can't subdivide without constructing a road. But if you could if you could subdivide with 100 feet and then sell that property to someone within that income bracket, you're getting value that you didn't have before.
Right, and you can use frontage as an incentive.
And so for that type of housing, again, not workforce, it seemed like, because that's every subdivision almost that comes through here, frontage is always, one of the primary considerations, and typically is the biggest issue in terms of.
And you could couple that with also following the DES requirements for the septic rather than the soil-based lot size.
And so,
That's not going to relieve it enough.
No.
Jerry brought it up quite a while ago, a sewage treatment plant. I mean, it sounds like, oh, God. But it might be doable, and that way, then you could have your density of, 110 by 110 lots.
Yep, and I don't think that's different than what I'm saying. If somebody,
Probably not, I
if
just
with
said
your
it louder.
PUD floating zone, somebody could put in a package treatment plant, and then there's really no limit on density on that property.
Right, because I think that's one of the drawbacks is,
When-
septic.
Right,
When
that even,
we-
right now, even if they put in a package treatment plant, they have to meet the soil-based lot size that's really irrelevant.
Right.
When Wentworth Hall subdivision was granted, I showed them at the time that they could actually put in package
Package treatment plant.
treatment plants for less money than what their on-site waste disposal was. it would then have to be supported, and other places in the district, the village district could hook up. But even with a lot of numbers showing them it would be less expensive to do that, and would then therefore allow for greater density, I was assuming that we had water sources to supply it, which I'm not sure of. But that was met with great resistance within the town when that was done. And the concept of a small treatment plant was not acceptable to the town folks at that time. Things may, I mean, that attitude may well change, presented again properly, but now you have the cost situation. You know, you're talking $1 million+.
That's where I think you'd want to get rid of that cap you have right now on the size of your workforce housing development. Because that 12 units can't pay for the package treatment plant.
But I look at what site development alone in Jackson is. The old adage, you can't bury a cat for $1,000 in Jackson. Versus Conway, which has water and sewage, and therefore much greater densities. So the site development alone, a septic system in Jackson costs $25,000 alone. A well can cost $30,000. So you've got
Well,
$50,000, $60,000 before you put a stick on the land.
And that's not affordable to somebody that's making $65,000 a year, if they're lucky making $65,000 a year.
That's how a district would be appropriate, because if you, I don't know how it gets created, some philanthropist comes in. But if you had the district and said, okay, we have within this district, we're gonna set up, a sewage treatment plant, and we're gonna have a community water system, and we're gonna have a high-density housing. It would probably work. I don't know where the money would come from to do that, but I think that's kind of what it would take, is create those districts. And if you're in that district, you tag into the sewage treatment plant, you're into the community water system. If you want to drill your own well, okay, you're still going to get done for the water system, because that's the deal in this district.
And how big could, that expand out of the village? I mean, I don't see
Where?
sewer treatments going up the top of Tin Mine and water going up the top of Tin Mine.
Even to our property at the top of the
Yeah.
falls, they could not deliver water to our property in the water district.
No, the district that Dick is describing, and that I described back in the 80s, was in the plane of we call it a teacup. The basin of Jackson is like a teacup. The aquifer spills out of one broken side. And it would be an excellent place to do district. What Dick is describing is a much more comprehensive approach to it. But the bugaboo, as Dick said, is the financing of it. How do you pay for something like that? And
And what scale do you need in order to make it worthwhile? Yeah. For the infrastructure that you have to build.
it's
But then you can have townhouses or condominiums, whatever, all the
right.
different ownership styles. I mean, you could do, it comes out to how compact can you
And
get
even for
this.
something as comprehensive of that, forgetting the water supply and the sewage treatment plant, is the land acquisition. Again, you just think about you're talking about maybe a 5 or 10 acre development.
With the grant kind of fund a project that Victoria was mentioning, I would think in that conversation, you'd want to involve developers who've built this kind of thing, to ask, so that you're not asking it rhetorically, what's the cost and how much land and what does it take? You could engage them in the conversation and make sure that you wrote something that was gonna be viable.
We've had on our ordinances a development incentive where a developer would take part of his development and do a set aside for what at some point is described as affordable, that he then gets more density because of that. So
It's a pretty small incentive.
and no one has ever taken us up on it.
Yeah, it's just not enough of an incentive.
I realize we've been focusing more on potential large scale or kinds of developments, maybe more commercial focused or, you know, multi-unit. How much opportunity is there in the accessory dwelling unit? It seems to me that if there were more of that kind of development, it would be properly scaled, work into existing infrastructure and also into existing lot structures, which seems to be appealing in terms of working within the current parameters that we have. But how much real opportunity is there in that? Does that really work that way for affordable housing in terms of the kinds of things you're looking at?
It is one thing we are looking at.
I mean, is it realistic or is it kind of pie in the sky kind of thing?
No,
where-
It's realistic,
Yeah.
definitely, for, let's say, when I'm 85 and I want to downsize or have my children live in the home and I can go to the apartment next door, or a family can come and move in, so I have someone there kind of take care of me, I can give it at a lower rate, it's supplementing my income, definitely. Younger families moving here, your child is home from college, they're working, but they're able to afford definitely the rents that are here now. You can have them there paying at a lower rental fee. I mean, it really could work. Really could work within the community. It's just whether or not a lot of the community members are not aware of the accessory dwelling unit law that even passed and the fact of what it is. You think mother-in-law apartment, but not really that you can rent it out to someone that does not have to be a relative, and that's huge in the new law. And a lot of people are not aware of that.
And so what were the amendments that you passed a couple months ago? You said, I think Betsy sent me the 2016, but you said you did just amend that.
We just passed because the state asked us to, about the accessory apartments. It was brought before the town, so the town's very much aware of accessory apartments, whether they're attached or unattached. And there are places in town that people do have their garages, or over top of their garages, they do have apartments in it right now, and they do have workforce housing. They're not
Yeah.
working here in town,
Right.
but they do, work in
Yeah.
in Conway, or North Conway. So that's not like we don't have it, because we do.
And there's less pushback I think, for accessory apartments than there would be for redistricting an area. Because I think that what would happen in almost any area of this town where there's enough land to, not in my backyard, nobody's gonna wanna live with it.
There's already resistance to just affordable housing. If you throw in a sewage treatment plant on top of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, what I was
Just throw it in
suggesting,
our
just
house
to,
and see what happens.
just
Yeah,
to,
right,
That is still
right in my
pursuing.
flower garden.
just to clarify, what I was suggesting was a floating PUD district that would do that, so that,
Can you define that a little better?
Yeah.
you don't decide ahead of time where it is, that the developer really does, identifies the parcel and then comes to you with the application. That way you're leaving a little bit more, there's a little more chance that someone would find a piece that they can afford to do that with.
But it'll still be a developer that has to have the money to be able to buy the land and then do all the infrastructure.
Right, I mean, I think you're really gonna be looking for that kind of public-private.
I think the developer's gonna wanna come in and sell that land and that house for $500,000, as opposed to putting you know.
No, you would put the, I mean, you would only be offering that if it was gonna have a certain percentage affordable to the workforce.
Okay, go back, I think I've told everybody else this before, where my daughter lives over in Bolton Landing, New York. They had a prime piece of property right on Main Street, and it got torn down. The guy went before the town, he's gonna put affordable housing up. 1 unit was affordable housing, the rest of them went for $500 and some thousand dollars. You can't stop that from happening.
Oh,
Well, you
well, sure you
can.
can, yeah. The state law puts pretty good protection on that.
But the town itself now is getting a ton of taxes out of those 500,000 some, as opposed to that 1 unit that's affordable.
Or
But if the town's intent is to create affordable housing, the town can do.
You would decide what the percentage was and say if, your regulations would say if you're going to maintain a certain percentage as affordable, and here's the state law that shows you how to ensure that, then you can have this floating PUD zone. That's how it works.
I mean,
Yes, there's an enforcement issue. I mean, the town could run into a time when somebody sold something to a higher income person, and it has to be enforced by somebody, whether that's Victoria's group has, I mean, I don't know if you get involved in those at all, or
Good
just
board of
be
Or
the
like-
town.
I mean, it just
So it
follows the
doesn't-
workforce housing law.
But it's,
but there can be all kinds of, I mean, almost anything that you propose, if it's large scale, in the planning process can sometimes have a hiccup. In my former town, we had a commercial district that was developed with the promise of affordable housing, and they built the commercial part, and then the land is still available for the affordable housing, but they failed to fund that. And they said, well, we ran out of funding, the economy has changed, we no longer can afford to do that, and that never got built.
Yeah.
And they didn't build any of the housing, including the affordable housing. They didn't discriminate between one or the other, but they got what they wanted, which was really to develop the commercial segment of it, which is where they expected to get their money, and then just said, can't do that. And they were a multi-billion-dollar organization. They just said the economy doesn't allow us to finish out. It's there, and it's a future tense, maybe it will work out.
when I was involved with the Housing Trust on the other side of the state, and we were involved in some projects, we were named in some covenants as having the ability to enforce. So, I mean, there are some groups around that could be named in that the town could have in the covenants, with their agreement, obviously, but,
And you learn from those situations. You say, well, if this is how that happened, what do we do to make sure that the housing gets constructed along with the commercial development?
But where were you talking about actually looking around here? That's one of the big questions. I mean, anybody that's lived here long enough knows that there just isn't any place for this to be. And also, you're talking about, like Jerry said, there's rocks all over the place trying to, the excavation work alone. You're talking about $200,000. So where's this affordable housing part coming in when it's cost so much money to be able to do it? Now, it's not like we have a couple of pieces of property that are like $10,000 or $12,000, and maybe you can get a septic system in there, and maybe you can get a well in there. Wells are, how deep they are around here. I mean, it's just like, believe me, I know we need to have affordable housing. It's necessary. It's necessary for the school, it's necessary for the community to function. But I don't see where it's going to be. I mean, I really don't.
I would make it even simpler than that. Compare the building costs and land acquisition in Conway to Jackson.
Or Bartlett, for that matter.
Well, Bartlett's not much less than Jackson, really, in terms of site work cost. But Conway has the infrastructure of water and sewage and flatter land.
Not so much rocks.
You don't have that in Jackson.
I mean, so I think we need to start with that first, to think, where is it going to be, as opposed to coming up with all these ideas and not having this is where we want it to be, this will, and then making it work.
That's kind of where I agree with you. And that's kind of why I was asking the questions about what kind of scale do you need in order to make these things actually work?
Yeah.
And because the per unit cost to get at a lower level needs to have multi-units. Multi-units require a certain amount of infrastructure. If you're going to point around the septic system, you know, prepackaged and working with a group water system, you know, your infrastructure cost is already pretty high. You're gonna have to have satisfactory units, maybe to the point of like the Wentworth condos, to do that. That's
On the other hand, if you say, well, where are we going to get the workforce to work at Black Mountain or Eagle Mountain House or Red Fox or any of the inns, where are they going to get people who are going to work for $12 an hour living in Jackson? The accessory apartment is a great resource for that. That meets the $750 criteria a month. That might be something that we could incentive in Jackson. In one simple way would be that we're not going to increase your taxes if you put an accessory apartment up. You know, that your assessment would stay the same. It's just a thought. I mean, but there are ways to incentivize people to build accessory apartments. And the reason that the state gave for codifying that on a statewide level is they were looking to increase affordable housing. That was their stated purpose.
Can you talk more about, you mentioned the property tax incentive, and that's not something that
It's
I
not,
work
well,
with
no,
at all.
this is something that we've been throwing around just in terms of a bunch of us just talking, figuring out, because there is a huge increase in Airbnb and VRBOs in the valley, and there's just not the availability of long-term rentals for our families and our workforce. Incentivizing property owners who do long-term rentals of a year or more. Beginning stages, I'm trying to talk with some representatives about how that would be written and how to present it, but I think it is something all municipalities could look at, especially, it could be a possibility here. Some sort of, tax incentive.
So it's not allowed yet, but you're talking with others to
Yes,
have it
I mean, it would be,
proposed.
it would be a proposal, it
Yeah.
would definitely be a choice, I mean.
Yeah.
What would that look like? Something like if you say, okay, you can build an accessory dwelling unit, and if you rent to someone who fits a certain criteria, then you get a tax break on that, something like that. Is that-
However
is that
you
the
want,
kind of
however
thing
the
that
town wants to
yeah.
incentivize, but just getting it out, I mean, I think over a couple of conversations a lot of us have been having about these accessory dwelling, and I know some towns were very concerned about the short-term rentals with this new law, especially here in the
Right.
valley. Okay, well, what can we do? And that was just one of the thoughts that was brought around, to bring to municipalities, hey, talk about a property tax incentive.
But
benefit your
what I was
community.
trying to ask
It's just a thought.
is it allowed under state law? That's,
I municipality, I think, I don't know, you'd have to refer to.
see, that's what I don't know, is what is up to the town on that or what isn't. That's a DRA question probably.
Well,
Yeah.
assessment is up to the town.
Right.
There's not, I don't think there's anything in the state statute that
I don't think so.
is directive on that.
I think a municipality can determine, I mean, and in the long run, it would be, you would know you'd have an income, a guaranteed income, a state or a town from having those long-term rentals, I guess, and as opposed to the sporadic of when they start collecting on the Airbnb and VRBO.
I know of a young couple with kids that are desperately searching for a place in Jackson. They're staying at a place now, but the owner is selling it. And what occurs to me is like up where I live, there's all these homes that nobody's there except for 2 weeks and Christmas.
Yeah.
And what a crime. I mean, those are perfect and I know that these people discussed it with a couple of people that said, yeah, you can rent the place year round, but of course you got to get out of there for 2 weeks around Christmas. Well, where do you go? But that's a potential place for affordable housing is these units that aren't being used.
Some of them, the accessory apartments are for security the rest of the year too. I've seen some of those.
Incentivize those second homeowners, putting an accessory dwelling unit in those,
And,
in their homes,
Yeah.
possibly.
It's a win-win for them. They have somebody on premises.
well, it's just, it's tough to convince people. I mean, when our house that we live in now was a second home, we didn't rent it. You know, whether I came up 3 weekends a year or whatever, you know, you just unfortunately don't want to rent it, but
And being a landlord is,
But, you know, there are, and this is a wonderful young family, and I'm not gonna mention their name, but everybody in town is looking for a place for them, and it's just, you know, they wanna keep their kids at Jackson schools.
Well, the reality of it is we lost a board member.
I'm sorry.
We lost a board member because of housing.
Yeah, yeah.
What Chris just alluded to with respect to the school, that, to me, is a way to, we only need, in other words, you have to, I guess, define what the goal is, whether you're trying to provide housing for service people who work in the inns and the ski areas in Jackson, or you're trying to attract a family, a doctor or a lawyer or a professional that would build a home or buy a home.
well, not necessarily.
And send their kid to the Jackson school. And that's one of the goals. And Chris alluded to it. There's many people who would love to live in Jackson. Some of them work for the town that have children and would love to have them in the Jackson school system. Accessory apartment buildings don't really work in that regard.
No.
But,
And I think that's the biggest workforce housing crisis that Jackson has. I mean, the hotels, et cetera, that's an issue, but the fact that our teachers can't live in town, or police can't live in town, you know, et cetera, that's a...
Or firefighters.
Or firefighters. You know, and that, so it's...
So I could see some of these pieces kind of hanging together in a grant project, like getting the public input on some of these ideas to find out what the community would support and what they wouldn't. Get the developers' input and examples from other similar areas on what's been tried and worked.
I think it's important too that, you know, not to expect some single silver bullet, that, you know, it may take a variety of
Yeah.
efforts.
I was hoping you didn't think either of us were arriving with one tonight.
You know, I'm wondering about that, you mentioned tax incentive. I mean, that might be an incentive maybe for somebody that uses their place 2-3 weeks a year, give them a real estate tax incentive to rent the place out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, I think the Stone Mass one was towards the sale of a property. I'm trying to work out in my mind how that would work, and I'm not figuring that out. But I don't think it was a rental-based, you know, that the program was rental-based. I think it was towards properties being sold.
Could you explain that again, Scott?
Well, it's Stowe, Massachusetts, I found
Oh, Stowe.
online. I found a PDF of a proposal, a deed restriction-based affordable housing incentive where there would be both a tax break as well as, I think, a cash payment of some sort. I don't know that it became law, but the document I saw was like 2005, I think. I emailed a couple people that would know, didn't get response. I called, you know, the secretary, and she thought it was law, but couldn't give me any information on it. But I didn't read through that whole document, but...
So if they sold the home, the monies would go back into whatever the organization was.
Well, there are two different things happening. The one thing I know that is happening in Stowe is that there's a trust that acquires land and targets that land toward affordable housing. I don't know whether it's specifically workforce or young family or both, or how that is. But there's also this proposal to have a tax, you know, a tax break incentive to promote affordable housing. And I believe it wasn't that you got tax breaks so long as you're renting your property or a portion of your property, like an accessory apartment, as affordable. I thought it was if the property sold towards, you know, being affordable, that there's a tax break, but I'm not quite sure how that would work, so I'd have to go back to that document. And I might be wrong, maybe just rental.
So in other words, the incentive was to keep it in an affordable category,
Yeah.
and then you were penalized if you sold, almost like if you had
Well, you're not.
land set aside, it's like in conservation.
Right. I
and
mean,
you
it's a deed restriction, so you simply cannot sell it outside of the parameters that are set.
And that's what you'd have if you provided an incentive. If somebody did take you up even on your current workforce housing incentive, you'd have that kind of
We have,
restriction in
it's
there.
based on deed restrictions, what we
Right.
have now. I mean, that's what we have to work with, really, towards a.
Do you think that would actually go over in Jackson? I mean, something like that would have to go, I would think, to a town vote. And if I'm somebody in
Absolutely.
Jackson on a fixed income, and you're talking about giving tax breaks to, I want my tax break too. So I'm not sure that that's viable.
Well, I think
Well,
that's
it-
where you need some help, maybe having some public meetings to find out, to ask residents these
I
things.
mean, there has to be a value created around, to me, the real target of all this is the community. It's maintaining the kind of community that we enjoy, while also maintaining the same, physical character that we enjoy. But it's continuing to have a school in town. Without a school, I mean, that will change this town dramatically.
Yeah.
And so it's maintaining the school, it's having the people that work in town, whether it's hotel staff or, the police department living in town, teachers in particular. I mean, how much better a teacher is someone gonna be if they live in the same town with the students that they're teaching? How much better a police officer is someone gonna be if they live in the town that they're policing? So that's the real goal, is that community, and how do we, and something we haven't talked about is elderly, housing for elderly, which may or may not be an affordable issue, but that's also a housing stock that Jackson doesn't have much of. When you start losing both ends of that age spectrum, what you're left with for a community is, it's pretty minimal at that point. So it's trying to do a lot of different things at the same time, and therefore probably requiring a lot of different strategies at the same time.
I think we need a huge philanthropist, is what we need.
Exactly.
Is there,
To buy a large tract of land and,
That was yet to be identified.
Or a very good grant writer.
And we'll get you a brass plaque and we'll put it up.
if I win the lottery, I'll do something, okay, I promise. But it's gonna be a big.
tax
pack.
credits?
lottery.
I mean, there's projects being done with tax credits.
Jackson doesn't pay that much taxes. I mean, our taxes are very low here in Jackson.
Not your taxes.
I forget something else, but if you wouldn't mind passing those, if you don't mind, I jump again.
Because you're right, I mean, the land is the stumbling block in a lot of this, and the market doesn't help us. So there are other incentives for developers.
I know we could probably talk about this perhaps for another
3 or 4 hours.
3 or 4 hours, and times 8 days maybe. And I'd like to, if we can, stick somewhat to our agenda, we're already a little bit over. And we have folks who
Bill,
are.
you want to, that's the stuff.
Everyone else have an hour to write this. For example.
You know, when I read just this first paragraph, if we wish to grow our local economy, we must undertake some common sense actions to make New Hampshire more attractive to young workers and their families. When I think of that, I think of, quite frankly, North Conway and Conway, not necessarily Jackson.
I
And
agree with
just-
you on that one.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
I agree with you on that one.
I'm not so sure that people who live in Jackson, you know, want to grow the town to any large extent. And we don't want McDonald's.
Well,
in
I think
town.
there's a mix. I mean, there certainly will be resistance to affordable housing just in of itself, let alone the incentives that we provide to make it happen. I mean, there's a significant number of property owners in Jackson that would love to just put a gate
Yeah.
on the bridge.
NIMBY.
And so there is that, and so whatever we try to do is going to be a challenge, and, you know, again, I think, you know, what we need to do is to create value around what we're trying to do, which is to maintain that community, and to, you know, to make the case that, you know, the community is as important as the, you know, the physical aspect of the town. And that both should be, you know, maintained. But for someone that's, you know, retired and not part of the community and doesn't really wish to be, for someone that's only up here, you know, a few times a year, it's a vacation home, and therefore really sees, you know, again, not part of the community, and that's tough. The reality is it's gonna be a tough sell.
So does the Housing Coalition get involved in projects?
No, we're not developers, we're advocates for land use regulation changes in all our 13 communities.
Is there any move toward a housing trust in the valley?
I think that is a conversation I've heard some groups have been having, but it doesn't relate to the Housing Coalition at this time.
There is a newly formed group in Jackson, which is specifically targeting affordable housing, and the way that we sort of started off, it sounds like it may be a very project-based initiative.
And we're definitely an advocacy group.
And something we're looking at is that the town actually owns a variety of properties. Some sort of condo-type situations that are very kind of murky. A bunch of properties are really too tiny to do almost anything with, but, you know, taking some of the land that the town actually already has in possession, and making use of that.
So our next steps might be to consider trying to get a grant, or to see if that might be a possibility to further our
Sort of consulting.
review. Is that something that you're that you're talking about might pick up possibly as a consideration?
Well, I think what Victoria's talking about is more something for the town, correct?
No, I hear what you're saying.
But there are grants through New Hampshire Housing that can also assist, and I can talk to you about that. But the municipal technical assistance, if you would like, we could have someone from Plan New Hampshire come to a planning board meeting and talk with you about, and probably able to walk you through a lot of these questions that you have in terms
Maybe we
of.
can do that as a follow-up, or Scott, if we want to maybe do a liaison then and see about scheduling that. Thank you very much for your input, I appreciate it.
Sorry we didn't come with the answer, but
Well, we
some
don't-
ideas on how to work toward it.
If we had the answer, we wouldn't need you. We don't know what it is. Thank you.
Oh, I'll be brief. Do you mind if I just
Sure,
do a quick
yeah,
overview?
go ahead, please.
Okay, that's nice.
Yes, please, yes.
And I
I'm
really
sorry.
appreciate this conversation on affordable housing, and I feel very lucky to actually be here when Tara was here. I really didn't know this was all going to be a discussion, so I'm very excited that I was part of it, so thank you. I just wanted to introduce myself and give you a quick overview of the Mount Washington Valley Housing Coalition. And that we work with the 13 regional communities, working for land use and zoning regulations, to pave the way for builders and developers to be able to build more affordable housing in the valley. One way that we do assist municipalities, we're a resource in advocating for these changes, is with the different possibilities of grants and guiding them that way. So I'd be very happy to work with Scott and to get you that information. So you can at least have an overview, or have someone that might be able to give you build on what Tara has already provided for you.
When you're talking about grants, you're talking about money.
Money.
Okay.
money to be used.
Cash.
Cash, money to be used for
Bitcoin.
consultants. So that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. I have information on our accessory, we've been doing also different workshops on the accessory dwelling unit. Ben Frost from New Hampshire Housing, you did with them?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so you know, he's been going over the law, and we've been just touching base with, we've had a variety of people attending each of these workshops. Gordon Cormack did one on how to build an ADU in your home. And pretty much going over in-depth law. One of the last ones we just had, that was going to be our last one, and the audience was like, what about finance? What about appraisal? What about insurance? Okay, so our next one will be June 28th, and it will be at the North Common Water Precinct. And we will have Ben Frost or George Regan, who is the Housing Awareness Administrator, do an overview again, short one of the law, because we're always having new people. And someone, David Infinger from Infinger Insurance, Kathy Sanderson from Bank of New Hampshire, and Nancy Hayes, who is from Yankee Appraisal, will talk about the ins and outs of appraising accessory, buying, selling, and insurance, especially for renting or not renting. Those questions people have.
That's a good follow-up, because the session I was at, they really didn't have really good answers for the appraisal process.
Right, that was just was it one of the first ones
Yes,
we
it's
did?
one of the first ones,
Was it with
yeah.
the macaroni and chicken?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's how, I remember by food, which one?
I think I was going to ask the question around that. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so please, I think it's 5:30 to 7. So hopefully your answers will be answered at that. So we have been providing these educational workshops, and next year we'll be having a year-long workshops for our communities around affordable housing and different spaces. Just I gave you our 2016 community report, just so you kind of know what we've been doing. Our charrette report, we are gearing up for another charrette, a creative hypothetical process. I know they did one here about 3 years ago, but it was deemed not financially feasible. And again, where you said you had town land, I was going to bring that up. If you want to propose possibly something being a site for our next charrette, we are vetting properties. We are looking at about 10-acre properties, land, 10 acres of land the thought is to do one of our properties would be long-term rentals, and the other one would be for sale housing, to have two different views in two different communities. Last year we did it in Bartlett and in Conway. And I passed around a report of that. So you have that information, but if you would like Jackson to be be considered a parcel of land for this year's charrette, just please email me, and I can look at getting the information. Again, that's just another creative process that looks at this land back here. Okay, how can we make this affordable, and what land use regulations and zoning need to change? And it's just kind of, we have a room of architects and builders and land adjusters and engineers and insurance and the bankers all together in one place. It's amazing what they come up with in 4 hours. They just figure it out, and they determine whether or not, is it feasible, is it not, and how can it be feasible. So if you'd like, I'd really love for you
To Kathleen's point, I'm not sure we even have that
Right, but it's just,
possibility of it.
and if you'd like to be involved in the process, if your town does not pick, but you still want to be involved in the process, I'd like to have you, so that would be great. And just the last thing, so I'll be really quick, is that this is a letter I wrote. It's an op that I hopefully will be in the paper tomorrow, and it's to the Affordable Housing Fund, which was created in 1988 by legislature that provides market rate loans and grants to developers, such as the tax incentive that Holly Pines was built on, to build rental housing that is more affordable to a range of incomes. And any project that receives assistance through the fund might dedicate at least half the housing units to households with incomes that are at or below 80% of the median income. One of the reasons that I've been talking with Representative Gene Chandler about this, because he is chair of the Public Works Committee and Highway Committee, and right now, next week, it will be going to Committee of Conference where they will vote. The Senate has a budgeted allocation for $3 million. Right now, the House is at $500,000. If you do read down and look to see how we stack up competitively across New England, New Hampshire it's very sad. It's a sad state of affairs, how much our state values and puts into affordable housing. So I'm just, if anyone, and I know he represents this area, just urging, just to, say, hey, it really is a need in New Hampshire, in having those conversations. So that's another thing that we've been working on, because in New Hampshire we are lacking competitively to our other states. And you have a long meeting. Do you have any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
One quick statistic, just for, not putting in the people. I believe New Hampshire now is the third oldest state in the country.
We are the oldest county.
And this is the oldest county, and Jackson is the oldest town.
You're kidding.
in this
Yeah.
county.
Coles
I'm moving
isn't
on.
the oldest county?
What? No.
No?
Carroll County
Really?
is. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't want to be with all these old people.
I did not know that.
And we're not able in New Hampshire to attract these younger families, and partially is due to housing.
Oh, these old
A lot of it
people
has to do
now, who
also
wants to
with
live
what they're
here?
paying people today. They don't,
Definitely in this area,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, minimum wages, I mean, come on. The joke used to be when we came here in 77, you have to have 3 jobs to live here. And it has not changed.
No, not in this area, but definitely even across the state, they're seeing that issue. Even when, I know they have about 3,000 tech jobs open right now throughout the state that are reasonably paying well. But
If you have
again,
that in your area.
right, in that area, I'm just looking at the
Exactly,
state as
yeah,
a whole, but
yeah.
still the money, the housing is still an issue for just even bringing the young families even to Manchester, and so. It's just it's a work in progress, and it's slow work, and you guys are doing awesome. I don't think you should be discouraged, because it is. It's long, slow work, just looking at, any little change is going to make an impact on the road. So I appreciate it, everything that you're doing and having these conversations. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I take this? No, do it. Sure. Okay, thank you very much. Is that good? Okay.
Sorry, we took over your whole,
I know.
whole meeting.
Well, something needs to be done. I just don't see any quick solutions.
Oh,
Thank you.
should I put my hat on now?
Apologize to those of you who've been waiting patiently. We probably could have talked all night, and I think we did a reasonably good job.
I thought you were gonna.
Pardon?
I thought you were gonna.
Thank you.
It's a very interesting topic, first time I'm attending here, but I think it's an uphill battle and an interesting topic.
Yeah, and not a lot of easy answers.
No.
Other business. We have Candy Fisher of the Amanuensis survey about 118 Switchback Way.
Yes.
Please, come on up.
Good evening, thank you. Yes, that was a good discussion to be in attendance for. My name's Andy Fisher. I'm from Amanuensis Survey Company. And really just coming to, for a very sort of early conceptual sort of sounding out of the board relating to, unfortunately I have this one smaller tax map portion, but we're dealing with it's a property that it's about 35 acres, so it's a sizable property, and it's
Affordable housing.
Yeah, we'll take it.
workforce housing. Yeah, it's I don't know if it's ready made for workforce housing, but there is an existing cabin on one end that's accessed off of Stem Turn Road. Yeah, but the only frontage is further up on Switchback, and it's a small amount of frontage. So the thought or the hope for the owners would be to, the very ideal thing would be a 2-lot subdivision. Like I said, there's already an existing cabin accessed off of Stem Turn that's would you know, if everything went well, that would be one residence and on, one of the two lots that would result from subdivision. And the other, there's a building site that's on the uphill side of the property that would be easily, relatively easily accessed from Switchback. So obviously, just like what the beginning of the conversation when I got here tonight was frontage being the big issues, and clearly that is the big issue with, that initially would shut the door on a subdivision here is there's clearly not enough frontage. It's 35 acres, so we're looking at 17-acre lots, plus or minus is, we're not looking for, I guess now I should be talking, if we were doing workforce housing, maybe it would be different, but.
We could give you incentives.
I was just gonna say that.
It's now we're getting into the conversation. But as of today, the ideal would be 2 lots. One already has its access, not frontage, because stem turn is not. I don't think we could count stem turn as.
It would have to be town standard.
Right, which it's not, obviously. So rather than have the Wengers go through the whole process initially of having us come out and survey the 35 acres and come to the board with a full application, we thought it would be worthwhile to come see what, just get the board's opinion on things and guidance as to what options, if any, are there for us, short of building a town spec road coming in off of Switchback, which obviously that is an option. It's certainly not. It's not a cheap option by any means, and especially looking to only end up with 2 lots rather than, if it were me and my money, if I were going to build a town spec road at all, I would need to get more than 2 lots out of it. But that's not the desire. It's not the intention. So it's a question of is this something that the board could waive potentially?
I don't.
No, but it would bounce to it's something that the ZBA could, maybe?
Yes,
They could hear it.
They could hear it.
Yeah.
That would, obviously, we can't sit here and say that they would grant it, but that would be,
It's just that there have been so many roads built in exactly these kind of situations to give one a waiver or others didn't would be a tough. But
certainly.
But I understand, that's something that's come up before, is that, because we require X amount of frontage, it ends up requiring that the road be built, and then because of the cost of the road, it sort of, the frontage requirement is to reduce development, but because of having to build the road, we end up increasing development, it sort of works against itself, but it's at the moment.
Correct, yeah, it either is a non-starter or it's swings the pendulum back, to the opposite end from what anybody wants.
Damned if we do it, damned if we don't.
Yeah, exactly. So
What is the topography of this lot? Is it very steep?
my understanding, I haven't, we haven't surveyed the property, we haven't been out on it, but my understanding is that it drops down in such a way that it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be easy to, you wouldn't have your driveway coming in off of, say there were two lots, you wouldn't share a driveway coming through. You'd come off and switch back to the house side up here, and it wouldn't be practical to try to, have a road coming down or anything like that.
Because of where soil-based lot sizing has, slope is a major factor. And if it's really steep slopes, then you would not be able to use that land as part of your allotment for the lot.
Absolutely, yeah, oh,
And
absolutely.
so I was just curious as to, I mean, this doesn't tell us anything.
No, I know. I mean, my initial, just my short answer would be 35 acres. I'm pretty sure that we would be able to get density for two 4-bedroom houses there. I'd be shocked if we couldn't, but obviously we would have to
Do the soil
do this survey in order to show that. So certainly rather than put that, sort of the cart before the horse, so to speak, rather than the last thing that we want to do, I mean, I'm happy to do the work, but I don't want to spend someone's money to.
Where's the cabin right now?
It's down here somewhere. Cynthia might be able to give us a little bit more detail on it, but it's.
Come on up.
Come on up. It's somewhere right down here because it is accessed right off of.
And this is,
It's the little A-frame.
and is this the little A-frame?
The little A-frame. And I think you know the house too.
So this drive here,
So
is that 367? I was trying to read that. Is that the?
yes, so most of, stem turn is on the property, of course. And then, my grandfather, okay, so the A-frame is about right in here. My grandfather, put the road
Right.
in. It's now part of the Jackson Ski Tour.
I mean, I was just wondering whether, if this were upgraded, you almost have 400 feet right there.
Right, that's what I was,
Maybe some sort of land swap with, and it'd be cheaper to upgrade this, I'm sure, than to, create a road from scratch, and then have the, if it were possible to split that, in terms of subdivision.
In other words, have this so that you have two lots. So this would have frontage there, and this one would have the frontage on that.
I was thinking more that the two lots would be, you'd split it this way.
so then you
Oh,
would.
Yeah, I know
okay.
that's not possible, but then, because you almost have 400 feet right there, so you have 200 and 200, if you upgraded that road, it'd be
Okay.
kind of standard. It's going to be cheaper to upgrade the road than to create a new one,
That's what I-
whether that kind of subdivision works.
How much frontage is on?
It's 40 feet. Yeah, so it's not much there. But if you were, if you were conceivably to upgrade that and then add that in, or you do something where it's, another option that was discussed was a cluster development,
Right.
which I think would only require the 200 feet.
Now,
Anyway.
these two properties, like, this one, this goes to,
Yes.
Yeah,
this property and this property. What's on those now?
This is the Wilsons, right?
Right.
Barbara Wilson. And this is, I looked it up. It's, they had it for sale a while back. I think they live in Florida. I don't know the last name. The taxes are quite high on that.
Well,
It's,
because if you picked up that property.
well, I wondered about that.
then you
I
then
think
you have
that,
frontage on Stuttgart.
right. I think, that, yeah, the taxes are pretty high.
Or do a land swap with.
Talk about it. I wondered about that too, and then go in,
Just to be.
To the
because you could still,
You didn't got this, corner right here, where I don't know if the distance is there, but.
yes,
Or
and
her,
then they
actually.
could access,
I don't know.
below
You
the
would-
house.
This is.
you wouldn't necessarily need to use that frontage as the access.
Right.
Right,
Ah.
because you've got the access to the A-frame, and then you've got potentially an easier access up top from, so it's one of those things of
Could you
just
go?
getting the frontage, not having to use that necessarily as your access.
Right. Could you go in, to the lower part of the property on stem turn? Would there be any issue with that?
As far as
So-
access? No.
So long as it's only two properties that are going, it's being accessed by that driveway, since it's not town standard.
Or no new, I mean, stem turn itself, I think, might have more than 2 already off of it. But it's an existing,
Existing
I would argue that it's an
private-
existing.
Private road?
yeah, and it's accessing existing structure. So you wouldn't be adding access to a residence off of stem turn. No matter what, I don't think that would be.
If we wanted to build in a different place, would we be able to do that? And, you know, I was also interested in your, talking about your dwelling, your,
Accessory dwelling,
I was just curious about.
Are there restrictions on proximity between structures when talking about, so you could conceivably have a structure here and not, you know, your,
I mean, having a detached accessory unit, is that what you're asking?
well, yeah, and obviously detached are allowed, but is there a proximity, or can your detached be 700 feet away on the same property?
There's nothing in the ordinance that states a distance.
Okay, so that's a possibility as well. Now, yeah.
Is this the way Stem Turn Road goes? I thought it just kept going this way.
There is a road, okay, Stem Turn Road does do this. There is a drive that was put in, yes, a while back. My grandfather put a road in a while back, and that's what the ski touring uses.
Where's the Frost property?
Right
Right
here. Yeah,
This whole section here?
yes, and then the Frost cabin is right here. So,
Oh, okay.
right, so
'Cause you
this
can
was
access
sold,
that-
used to be Frost, it was sold, and then this is where the Frost
Okay.
cabin is, I
I
believe.
get it.
So then the only thing that would be, potentially have to be hammered out, I guess, amongst the owners. So there is, obviously so long as the land can support, you know, that's all, we know that, they would have to have the septic and all that. Then there would be, it wouldn't be outside of the regulations to have a structure here and a structure here, and they're all under, as long as they're all in the same ownership. Is that the?
I mean, as far as having like an accessory
Correct.
apartment?
Like, it is accessory. If you take a look at the regulations, it's required that its ownership is, it's accessory to a primary dwelling.
Yes.
And there are restrictions on the size of the accessory building.
I thought you were gonna divide it this way. So you have one here and one here?
No, I was
No,
just.
that was one,
Oh, okay.
but no, the
That's
initial,
proposal.
yeah, the initial, you know, or the ideal would have been something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, just because of, in large part to, you know, there's already the house site down here, and there's a house, a good house site up here. So that would just be the logical break, were all the frontage issues
Not there.
accounted for, yeah.
So one accessible from Stem Turn and the other one from Switchback.
Ideally, I guess, yeah.
And being that there's really no frontage on Switchback, maybe.
There's no frontage on Switchback?
There's 40,
Yeah.
40 feet, yeah. So there's not,
40 feet.
Just the driveway.
yeah, so there's not sufficient frontage.
It sounds like you're a motivated seller right there. You said that the property owner is not paying the taxes.
That's possible, yeah.
I was looking at wondering whether, you know, we might purchase that, but
Right.
I don't know if they would, you know, sell it for what it might, you know, it might be more affordable to do like you
Yeah,
were saying
yeah,
and
yeah.
come on Stem Turn Road. I don't know.
How big is that? Do you know?
It says, yeah, me neither.
Maybe you could work a deal.
1.7
Work a
acres.
deal.
So,
Right, I mean, there's always a possibility of boundary line adjustment so that you can just adjust the boundaries and just, you get that
Yeah,
land
it's
and
just
they give you land, the same amount, and so you can work it out, so it's just a matter of changing, who's gonna pay the surveyor and the recording fees as opposed to actually changing deeds.
So that's a,
All right.
and then in order to get, if we want to pursue trying to get a variance for frontage, would we have to come before this board with a?
You'd have to be denied by
Yeah.
us in order to take it to the ZBA.
Okay, that's,
We have to tell you no.
yeah, which is fine, but just trying to,
That is the
I don't want to spend.
Which we likely would.
Yes, which certainly, you would. I think you'd have to, yeah. So,
And then with the ZBA, you have to get a variance, you have to, there's about 5 different criteria that you have to meet for
yes,
the ZBA, that's state mandated.
yes. Yep.
So
So,
you
There-
have to
There have been decisions by the ZBA, and it's under 674, that with respect to frontage, you might want to review some of those decisions that are in the record with respect to frontage, because there have been the problems that Sarah refers to generally as the hardship ones.
Would you ask Chris to pass one of those maps up? Can I just- I know the area pretty well, but
thank you.
ZBA.
Zoning board.
Oh,
ZBA.
I thought it was in C, I didn't get that. So, in order to go there, we would have to reject it.
Right.
Jerry, thank you for your input, we appreciate that.
I know they're looking for work.
The ZBA, yeah, they don't always get it.
Since the ordinance is passed by the board at the last time, it kind of put it out of business.
Fewer meetings.
Yes. But the frontage issue has been an issue that's been brought up many times, and there's been many rulings in both the courts and locally on the frontage issues.
Okay, so we will, depending upon how things proceed. Thank you. Do you have any
Well, I don't know what
thought about that?
Lot to think about.
Yeah, so it's,
this is
I
all
think
new
it's,
to me, so.
yeah, so I think it's, yeah, I mean, I appreciate your time and input, and I think that, I mean, to me, I think that sort of clarifies what our options are, and then it's a matter of what's the best, and making sure that we can, there are options, some are more involved than others, and great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no,
Oh,
that's
that's really
good.
actually important. That's an important discussion.
well, it's fun to have an audience too.
Sometimes we overtalk here.
It was good. Yeah.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, other business. Stephen Whitaker of Atherton.
The most patient.
Pardon?
I said the most
The
patient.
most patient, yes.
How you doing? I don't think
Welcome.
Good to be here, thank you. I work with Attitash Realty, I'm representing a client up on, who has a property for sale that is on Eagle Mountain Road and Ridge Road. There's 2 adjacent lots up there. Lots number 38 and 39, I didn't, number 1, I ran out of toner, but I made a couple of copies of deed, plot plans, tax records, all that fun stuff in there. And what really kind of brings me here is this land for sale went under contract. The buyers put these stipulations into the purchase and sales agreement. And I'll read it verbatim here. Buyers are able to obtain a written statement from Town of Jackson Building Inspector or other town officials satisfactory to the buyers certifying that the lots are buildable, grandfathered, despite not having 200 feet of Jackson zoning requirement road frontage. So this is already an existing lot. Dodge Enterprises divided it way back when, in the 64, I guess. Was then sold to the Swans, who sold it to my clients, the Vertigans. Amanuset actually did in 2015 a 3-bedroom septic on lot number 38 on Eagle Mountain Road, which I have copies of the town approval, et cetera, in that file package. Went to Kevin Bennett, asked him, I guess this buyer's rep or salesperson called Kevin, asked them if he could put something in writing stating, yeah, it's grandfathered, buildable, no worries. Kevin said yes, and then when I went to meet with him and follow up on it as the contingency time period was running out, Kevin said, no, we might have to come before the board just to kind of put it on record, and spoke with Julie Hoyt as well, and she suggested that as well, just to get it on record. It's not that we're subdividing or looking for any type of variance. It's one lot has a current septic plan from 2015 for a 3-bedroom septic. The other lot on Ridge Road has yet to been perk tested or anything done. Their language in the purchase and sales was a little bit loose, and again, I think they raised some concerns as they may have been reading the zoning ordinance, where it clearly states in section 8.3.1, parcel to be subdivided shall have at least 200 feet of frontage along a public or private road or right of way. So we're not subdividing, it's existing. So I'm assuming it meets the town's criteria as a buildable lot as long as we get the septic perk test done and do the legwork on it.
Because it's not subdivision, though, it would not be something the planning board would get involved in, so I don't think we'd be able to write a letter.
You have to be selected.
See that gentleman down there? Sure, no worries.
Our liaison guy.
I was doing my homework.
And again, going to, taking the steps, going to talk to Kevin, showing him what I had as far as septic plan. He said, if you put that in front of me today with a building permit, it wouldn't be an issue. We'd sign off on it instantly. It's that lower lot that we've yet done a perk test on or done any future development. But I guess I'm happy with the conclusions of, I know I can prove what it is, and certainly working with my counterpart, Bob Cantak. I mean, we've been around the valley a long time. There's no question it's, well, if it received a good perk test and septic design, then there's no question it would be a buildable lot.
Yeah, to me, it sounds more like an issue, a legal issue regarding the letter.
Right,
Mhm.
which we would not be, we're not permitted to do that.
Right, but even for the selectmen, that wouldn't surprise me if they'd be somewhat reluctant to write that kind of a letter. Maybe it's been done before, I'm not sure, but that'd be a Peter Malia question ultimately.
Sure. And completely understandable. I mean, litigiously, I get it, I understand it. There's no easy way around it, and I just promised my clients that I'd follow up on this with them to get that, I guess, put out there with how that
Well, I think
contract read on moving it.
we sympathize with the client's desire to make sure that they can build something.
Right.
Right, and the answer is, we don't really have that answer. I don't think it's the frontage, if I'm hearing it correctly, that's necessarily.
Well, both
Well,
lots.
because it's not a subdivision. If they're coming to subdivide, then the frontage that would be our issue.
Right,
The frontage would be
right,
an
right.
issue. But because it's not a subdivision, this is really a matter for the board of selectmen, the building inspector. We don't believe that they would
Right,
not allow construction so long as all, the work
Septic.
worked out.
These were subdivided way back when. The lower lot on Ridge only has 161 feet of frontage. The upper lot on Eagle Mountain has 171 feet of frontage. But again, to my understanding, it's grandfathered. Dodge Enterprises did all the legwork, subdivided way back when. It's there. There's other buildings all over that whole area. And we have the current 3-bedroom septic stay in town signed off on already. But no,
good.
When were they subdivided?
way back when,
Back in the 60s.
Dodge 64, I think.
Okay, so they are lots of record.
Absolutely.
And you can squeeze do you have to do water?
Yeah, private well, but the upper lot on Eagle Mountain is all set. Amanuzik did all the septic design and put the well in there, et cetera. So that one's good to go. It's just that lower lot that is questionable.
Is it gonna have 75 feet radius from the well?
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good there.
Has this property transferred or just pending?
It went under contract, and then these were the contingencies that the new buyers had put onto this. And interestingly enough, since then, their house burned down, so it fell apart. The contract is dead. Unfortunately, they lost their whole life, basically. So the sellers let them out of their contract, but this kind of ball was already in motion. The buyer's agent. I said, I talked to Julie just last Wednesday, and their house burned down on Thursday, and I had already been put on a schedule, so I wanted to stop by and just say hello and listen in as well as some of those other topics.
So the only issue is that they want to get some sort of written assurance. That's the issue.
Correct.
And we can't do that, but it doesn't seem like there's any problem, because you don't have to do anything with that little lot, do you?
There's no subdividing taking place, it's just a matter of doing a perk test and then doing the
It
legwork.
doesn't sound like something that we would need to really look at unless the building inspector had issues.
And talking to Kevin several times, he said no issue, again, as long as the legwork is done on the property. Another question on an entirely different topic. Dodge Enterprises, with all their deed restrictions they had once put in that whole area. Talked to Jackie Jones, who was very much an integral part of Dodge Enterprises, but with Ann being deceased and Doctor being in somewhat an incapacitated state, and knowing Brooks, have you ever had any instances come before you with, I guess, problems with Dodge Enterprises? They have an architectural review committee, certain restrictions and covenants that date back into those 60s.
I've had some problem with Brooks, but that's...
Yeah, Brooks is kind of a recluse now, but I respect that.
I know his son very well.
Right.
No, again, that kind of thing wouldn't really, that's more enforcement, and that'd be more enforcement on the property owner's end as opposed to even the town.
I was just
Where
curious.
that comes into play is financing with banks. Sometimes when there's deed restrictions, banks get very fussy.
And it's pretty heavily back then when the Dodge Enterprises, then Jackson Associates took it over from that point and carried it forward. But I've never heard of anybody coming forward from Dodge Enterprises and saying, I need an architectural review committee of this design that you're planning on building up there.
It's like there are a lot of deed restrictions on a tire mill, including keeping your, the tree level down.
You right?
Makes sense to do, and I don't know if any of that ends up being enforced ever.
Sure.
Just a lot of that around.
Yep. Same thing, exterior of the building to be completed within 1 year of start date. No trailers, outbuildings, things of that nature. All right, no, like going back, if I could put my own 2 cents in on that whole affordable housing, huge issue. I've been up here 30 some odd years, living here in Glen, realtor for the last 15 of those, and pretty interesting as far as how there is no affordable housing. But there are some examples, I think, like Eliason from Sky Valley, he had all the groundwork laid out for that entire property, and I think 56 3-bedroom style units over there. They had once, and this is in town of Bartlett, right on 302 there, they had once looked at that for a home for unwed expected mothers, which kind of got shot down by the town, but he's recently sold that. That was on the market for $1.4 million. And again, affordable housing, and we're facing the same with Leslie Mallett being a representative for that, looking at another property at the Better Life Cabins, just as you're coming into Bartlett. We're looking at that for affordable housing as well.
Well, the one model that we do have that's great is Ann Peterson.
Right there, what she built, there was 4 units.
We can figure out a way of replicating that.
Where's this guy?
It's on
Carter Notch.
The advantage of Sky Valley is flat land.
Yeah, oh, very much so.
Spruce Mountain Road.
But I'm sure many remember.
They're 1-bedroom cabins.
You mean the houses,
Yeah.
like the 4 or 5 houses?
Right, small units, yeah.
But remember Iron Mountain House? I mean, that's all I can say about that.
Yes.
What that turned into, and what an eyesore, and, is that the type of project we want coming into our towns?
Well, that's where we have to be careful, is not create a ghetto. You know, we don't want to create an area with a stigma. We want it to be a viable living space.
And it is very difficult. I hear, you know, the accessory dwelling thing. The same with me. I live on Glen Ledge and I have the same. I have neighbors who are up 2 weeks,
Yeah.
4 times a year maybe sometimes. It's hard, it's a hard road, but anyway, good luck with that one.
Thank you.
All set. So I guess my other alternative, and I'm sorry, you're a selectman, yes?
Yes, Dick Bennett.
Dick, all right. Should I just schedule
Yeah.
some time or?
And I think whatever you could bring in when you have the homework done, and we'll sign it. I think that the selectmen would sign it, not the, but I'll talk with Bennett, the other Bennett,
Sure.
and, you know, just go over it with him, but we'll sign it up.
Sure thing. And I think it was this buyer beware type approach on this with their questions of, they read the wrong thing, it wasn't a subdivision, it was an existing subdivision, and they just got a little bit nervous about 200 feet of frontage. Right? Thank you all, I won't hold you up, I know.
Do you know Brookie Dodge?
I do, yes.
He probably would have signed a waiver for that.
For Dodge Enterprises. Yeah, and talking with, you know, pretty extensively with Jackie Jones, she said the same, she'd be happy to, and even go up and talk it over with Brooke. Used to do flowers up at the Dodge's house a long time ago. Have a good night, everyone, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to see a man with a decent haircut.
All right, we have one item, just a reminder, there's a planning board member workshop this Saturday at 9 a.m. in Milton. It runs from 9 to noon, and it's intended for planning board members who either have not done a workshop before or would like to renew their skills. And it's training to be a planning board member. Would be very useful.
If you go up there, you should carpool though.
That would be useful, yeah, carpool. So if anybody else is thinking about it,
I'm thinking, but not that hard.
okay.
Just think of it.
All right. If anyone is interested, let me know. I'm also thinking seriously about doing it. Any other business?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.